Hey folks, Gway. I'm sure by now you've heard about the law in Florida that is meant to keep people from feeling discomfort, guilt, anguish, or any other form of psychological distress based on their race, color, sex, or national origin. This law, that's all over the media lately, is purported to be about keeping white people from feeling discomfort for what white people have done in the past to African Americans, people of African origin, indigenous peoples, or any other minority that the Europeans have inflicted harm upon or oppressed. It affects, according to the reading that I did, it affects really two aspects of our lives: our employment and our education. On the employment side, it says that, as the terms of your employment, nobody should be taught that they should feel discomfort, guilt, anguish, or any other form of psychological distress based on their race, sex, color, or national origin. From the education perspective, it's a little more broad, problematic. It says that no lesson should cause an individual to feel discomfort, guilt, anguish, or any other form of psychological distress based on their race. I don't know how this is all going to turn out. I don't know how this law will be enacted. I don't know how it will be enforced. I suspect, though, that especially from the education side of things, it'll probably lead to a whole bunch of lawsuits. And it'll probably lead to a whole bunch of teachers who feel shy about teaching certain subject matters. From a Christian perspective, I'm really fascinated that they've written a law to keep people from feeling discomfort about what they learn. I'm really fascinated by that. I mean, again, from a Christian perspective, we are always supposed to be learning. And from a Christian perspective, our past is one of the absolute best teachers. Right? Our history is one of the best teachers we have. As individuals, as communities, as corporate bodies, our past is such a huge teacher for us. It's an amazing, amazing resource for us. And sometimes when we dig into that resource, sometimes when we use that resource, we're not going to like what we find. We're not going to like what we see. We're not going to like what we hear. And it's going to make us feel discomfort. But that feeling of discomfort is not a danger. That feeling of discomfort is a gift. Right? For the brave, for the bold, for those who are willing to do the hard work, that feeling of discomfort can be an indicator that what we are exploring in that moment, what we are encountering in that moment, what we are experiencing in that moment is something that will benefit us if we're willing to unwrap it, if we're willing to explore it, if we're willing to unravel it and to look inside. Right? When we feel discomfort or guilt or anguish or any other form of psychological, emotional distress, sometimes those feelings, they're like a road sign saying, hey, turn here. There's something here for you. There's something of interest for you. Now, sometimes we feel those things and we look and we can say, yes, I need to feel this. What I did was wrong. How I behaved was wrong. The decision that I made was selfish, or whatever the case might be. Sometimes we can look at something and we can say, yes, I feel discomfort, I feel guilt, I feel anguish, I feel some form of emotional distress, and it's mine. This is an appropriate feeling. This is an appropriate emotional response to what has transpired. And I am going to examine what has transpired, and I'm going to allow it to inform my future decisions. I'm going to allow it to inform the journey that I'm on. I want to avoid doing those things again. And sometimes those feelings we have, that discomfort, that guilt, that anguish, that emotional, psychological distress, it may point us to something where when we open it, we say, hey, you know what? I shouldn't be feeling like this over that. This is a disproportionate emotional response, an inappropriate emotional response to that moment. This feeling that I have is not mine. This feeling that I have is something that's being heaped upon me that I need to free myself from. Either way, we're receiving a gift. Either way, we're being informed and we're being taught a lesson. Either way, we're being shown a new way of moving forward. For Christians to be worried about feeling uncomfortable about the past, in this case, critical race theory or European involvement in the slave trade or the massacre of indigenous peoples, the genocide that occurred in North America, for us to say we shouldn't have encounters with our history or in school that make us feel something is troubling to me. For the Christian, our feelings are so important. Our emotional responses to information is so important. It leads us. It guides us along our journey with God. May the Lord bless you. May the Lord keep you. May the Lord's face be made to shine upon you and be gracious to you. May the Lord's countenance be lifted up to you. May you always know the peace of being in the Lord's presence. And I pray that while these feelings may be icky, that we would always be bold and courageous enough to explore, and that we would always be willing to do the hard work that it takes to learn the lessons that these feelings are trying to teach us, and to apply these lessons into our life going forward. If we're willing to do that work, if we're willing to take a close look at where these feelings are coming from, we will benefit from them. Amen. Nemultus.